Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Arnie Diaz Show. My name is Arnie Diaz. Thank you so much for listening and watching and just being around. For those of you who have stuck around and remained subscribed to all of my feeds, I appreciate you. And I fucking see you. Appreciate that. I've been gone for a little while, but I am now back. I've just been working and working and working and trying to make sure that I have time to do more things like this. And now that time is finally at hand. So, without further ado, the Arnie Diaz Show returns. Today, I'm going to be going over the top 10 movies that I loved this year. Now, full disclosure, I did not watch everything this year. I didn't have a lot of time and I didn't want to go to the theater too much, but I did manage to go out there and watch a couple of movies. And I also was able to see a few at home. And so, without further ado, these are my top 10 movies of 2021. Coming in at the bottom at number 10, Ghostbusters Afterlife. This Ghostbusters sequel that takes place in the original Ghostbusters world and negates any history of that Ghostbusters female comedy that came out a few years ago. Like most people, I found that movie to be not great and very paint by numbers and I mean, very well made. Very like a lot of money went towards that movie, and a magnificent effort. But it just didn't land in a lot of the right ways. It wasn't filmed correctly. It was literally filmed like a slapstick comedy. And a Ghostbusters film is a film. They used film to film it, and it needs to be done in a more serious manner to really be funny because that's where the humor comes in. And I think Ghostbusters Afterlife does that. It goes back to the more cinematic type of movie that Ghostbusters, the original, was. You see, it makes sense because the writer and director of this movie is the son of the original writer and director, Jason Reitman. And I really liked a lot of it. It was fun. I liked the story. The plot was okay. It was really paint by numbers, and it really was a carbon copy of the original movie, the original Ghostbusters, in a lot of ways. And it really hinged on a lot of member berries. But ultimately, I had a good time. The performances were great. The main girl was really good. I loved her performance throughout, and I had fun. And that's really all you can ask for a movie and a Ghostbusters movie, for that matter. So number 10, that was Ghostbusters Afterlife. And at number 9, Matrix Resurrections. This movie is very polarizing. There is a very large contingent of people who vehemently don't like this movie, and an equally large amount of people who actually do love this movie and enjoy it, and call it their best film of the year. And I could totally understand both sides, but I do believe that ultimately Matrix Resurrections does fall flat of a lot of the expectations of what way Matrix movie would be. And in a lot of ways that makes sense because it's really not a proper Matrix movie. It is a character-driven piece that has a very cohesive plot that is simple, far more easier to understand than the original ones, which is kind of saying a lot because it was very convoluted. And there's still a lot about this movie that is a little difficult to understand. But at a rudimentary level, it is a very simple movie. And it has a lot of really inventive story devices, and the performances are great. Carrie-Anne Moss definitely carries the relationship between her and Keanu Reeves. I love Keanu Reeves, but he's not the greatest actor. But, he has a charm, and he's always committed to everything that he does, and the honesty in his characterizations always come out. And, what it has to say about the movie industry as a whole on a very meta level, and that's not saying much if you haven't seen the movie. It has a lot of good points, and I was totally 100% there for the effort that this movie went to say those things. So, because of that, it is my number 9 movie of the year. And for number 8, Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. This movie, seemingly, I heard about it and then it was already done. I remember, it was just a few months after I had heard this movie was going to happen, and it was already out, and it kind of came and went, and not a lot of people saw it. I don't think it did terribly, but it definitely didn't do great. Which is a shame because this movie really showcased Bob Odenkirk in a light that you wouldn't have expect from him, at least at this point in his career. But he really does fill the role of an action star well. A lot of his performances are this his performance in this is fantastic, and that's what sells this entire movie. Um, it is definitely a paint by numbers kind of movie that is within that genre of the John Wick or assassin kind movies that the John Wick movies are based on. So but at the same time, it has a unique spin, and Bob Odenkirk gives it his all to the point where you believe him. And ultimately, because of that, this is a very fun movie, and I had a really good time with it. It really does deserve a nice watch. It's fun, and it goes in a way, it goes somewhere that you're not expecting, but when it happens, it's just incredible. Uh, the last act of this movie is very good. And the success of this movie does fall within the performances, and there are some really, really good performances, not of Bob Odenkirk either. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything, but great, good time. Nobody at number 8, and at number 7, Corella. I really didn't have any expectations for this movie when I went in to see it. I did see this in theaters, and that's the best place to watch this movie because it is a very beautiful film. I think the art direction and the direction itself is really fun, cinematic, and big and bold and bright. It really is a musical in a lot of ways because it does have the tropes of a musical where things become larger than life in moments of great emotion. And Emma Stone's performance is stellar. Now the story is decent for sure, but there is definitely a lot of meandering through the middle of the movie, and the plot is clunky to say the least, for sure. But the performance and the way everything in the world is played, I just thought it was fun and just really bold, right? I mean, it is. If I could explain that in some way, it is. This movie is a cross between. It's a Devil's Wear Prada movie, yes, because it does take place in the world of fashion, so it does have that dynamic, right, where it has like mentor uh, and subordinate, and you have like somebody who is at the top of the company who everyone's afraid of, which that aspect is fun. And because of Emma Stone, all of that really works. And because of that, the very dramatic and bright parts of this film shine because you believe them, because everything else in the movie just kind of falls in place. But it all hinges on Emma Stone's performance, which is spectacular. I think this is probably, she had one of the best performances of the year in this movie. It's a shame that a lot of people didn't watch this. However, I do believe that it wasn't completely unsuccessful and it did all right, which bodes well for it for sure. But it was a great movie and I had a lot of fun. It's just one of those movies that you if you watch in a theater, you can really feel the filmic and great enthusiasm of this fantastic picture coming to life. It was just fun, inventive, and bold, and I loved it. Corilla. And for number 6, King Richard. This movie ended up being something I didn't think it was going to be. And then by the end of the movie, I was like, wow, I haven't seen one of these movies in a long time. This movie really reminded me of like the early 90s kid sports movies, like Sandlot. Now, this definitely was a little bit more serious than those movies, but it did give me that nostalgic feeling for those feel-good sports kids movies in a very serious family biopic. And, since this is all kind of based in reality, it makes sense for the way the things would play out. So for that, I have to say, King Richard, fun and good, solid sports movie. It it does this thing with the sports movie formula where it kind of puts in this tale about a family, and it's a family from the 1990s, you know, growing up in that time. So in a lot of ways, it's a period piece about the 90s. It's a 90s family. It feels like a 90s family drama TV show that I used to watch back in the day, like a more dramatic Full House. um, and the performances are really good, and there's really fun moments in this. And towards the end, it crescendos to this really fantastic, just good, fun, good, clean sports movie ending that is just solid and made even better understanding that this is all like real and this happened in life and these people are still around. Great, fun movie, good family movie as well. Really just great. That was number 6, King Richard. And for number 5, Dune. Dune. Man, Dune. So a lot of like it this movie made a lot of money and it is beautiful and it deserves it for sure. And it has gotten a lot of critical acclaim, has been nominated for Best Picture. It is, quite frankly, the biggest, brightest, like, most beautiful movie I've seen in a couple of years. It is fantastic. Um, Now, the Dune story is a little convoluted and it's a little difficult to really follow without all of the bits and pieces really given to you. Um, I don't think that the movie did a bad job of telling the story of Dune, but I do think that if you don't know anything about the Dune lore, you might be a little lost, which kind of makes sense why a lot of people who've watched this movie fall in two camps. Loved it, great, looking forward to the next one. And then also, I just didn't understand what was going on, but it looked cool and was fun. And that's about how you had to explain this, because to adapt Dune, which, if I'm sure you've probably heard this, and it's not a spoiler to say this, but this is a part one of a possible two, and this movie does end in the middle of a book, um, and that rubs people the wrong way sometimes if they don't know what's going on. At the same time, they're trying to figure out what's going on in this movie, and then you just stop it halfway through. It makes it difficult to follow a story. Um, However, for me, my history with Dune, I have watched a Dune miniseries that was done on Sci-Fi from when I was a little child. And my favorite one is actually one that James McAvoy started, and I believe was in the early 2000s. And my very first time I ever saw any story that was based in the Dune universe was also another sci-fi miniseries that they did in the late 90s. That was like a 3 cassette stack. That was some of the I don't know, some of the greatest, campiest 90s sci-fi there is. Um, so I was very familiar with the Dune stories. So for me, it was just all gloss and scale and boldness and just the sound. And I was just enthralled in this world that Denis Villeneuve created for all of us. And I'm so happy he got the money to make this. Just for that alone, it is a miracle to make any movie. And to make this movie, it must have taken a village. um, but it's not higher up on the list because, it is a little hard to understand. And no one knew this was going to be a number one until until the credits rolled at the beginning of the movie. But still, a great, fun movie. And if they release it again on theaters, you should go see it because it just deserves to be seen on the biggest screen that you can find, for sure. And for my number 4, ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This movie just came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere and just took off and blew the doors down and just like showed everyone what a fucking solid, and showed everybody that an Asian led superhero movie can not only be incredibly well done and viscerally fun to watch, but it can be insanely successful. This movie is one of the best popcorn movies that I have seen in almost an entire decade. It was fun. It was beautifully shot. It is a movie that is also a film, and it does both of those things in sync and does it well. Does it follow the same old Marvel tropes? Yes, 100%. But at this point, those tropes are part of the machine, and it's just the way that things run, and in a lot of ways is the reason why Marvel has been so damn successful. Because they work, and they're easy to put together, so they just keep using the same tropes. But again, fantastic, fantastic story, fantastic characters. The performances were incredible. I fell in love with the villain's love story in this. It was incredible. It just utterly just gushed, well made, and love and blood, sweat, and tears just went into creating every aspect of this movie. Fantastic. ShangChi, Legend of the Ten Rings. You have Disney Plus. Watch it, please. And for my number 3, best movie of the year, Tick, Tick, Boom, Boom. The Andrew Garfield-led musical movie. Based on the life of the man who wrote and created Rent. Full disclosure, I am a theater kid, and I wear that proudly. So watching this movie filled me with both nostalgia, but also just pure artistic expression. Which it just hits different for me. Because, like, I don't want to do that. I want to express myself. And this movie is all about a person trying deeply to express themselves and succeed in that, and failing and winning and failing and winning. And the performances are fantastic. It's a musical that does a lot of really inventive things, and is just a beautiful homage to the life of this man. I just can't say enough about this movie. It is just brimming. It's brimming with this, like, love. Is just all over this thing. From the script writing to the direction, Lin-Manuel, by the way, it is taking the subject matter and caring for it in the most respectful and also entertaining way possible. Just fun, absolute fun, and it oozes with art and expressionism and just like fighting and dying for the thing that you want to do with your life. It's wonderful. It woke me up a little bit. Maybe start moving a little bit faster. For sure. So that was my number 3, Tick, Tick, Boom, Boom. And for my number 2, Spider-Man. Come on. No Way Home, like, is so many things wrapped up in one. It is a sequel upon a sequel of a Spider-Man movie. It is the conclusion of a trilogy, the continuation of a hero's journey, and also the end of a hero's journey. It is filled with pathos that I didn't even think you could put in a Spider-Man movie. It's so good. Again, like, so good. This was and had definitely the best Tom Holland performance I have ever seen. He goes to some places that are just... I mean, this movie is... It's a grown-up Spider-Man movie. In a lot of ways. It grows the characters. The franchise becomes a little bit more grown-up. Stands a little taller. It puts everything together. It was fun. It was inventive. It was unique. But it also used a bunch of it also used a bunch of member berries to bring everyone to the table, and which makes sense. Sony wants to milk that Spider-Man cow for all it's worth, and Spider-Man is definitely paying off. Definitely paying off. But wonderful. The performances were great, and come on, it's not a spoiler to say this. When all of the Spider-Men came together and they built those relationships up, it just hit. It hit. They hit everything they do. Disney just has us. Disney's just figured it out. They figured out how to do it. Unfortunately, Sony now takes the reins. I don't know what happens after this. Apparently, they're planning a Craven movie. I think a Craven Alone movie. So we've got that movie. We got a Morbius movie. I mean, I don't know. I'm worried. Alas, Spider-Man No Way Home. Fantastic film. Watched it with my friends. Thank God I was able to do that and experience this movie for what it was. It was fantastic. It was fun. It was great. It was dark and scary. There really was some horror movie elements to this movie. It was kind of a horror in the middle. And then it just kind of crescendoed to a glorious and just beautiful ending. I can't say enough about this movie. I can gush all night about Spider-Man No Way Home. Number one, the number one movie that I loved in 2021, The Suicide Squad. By all means, if you have not watched The Suicide Squad, do yourself a favor. Put it on immediately and feast your eyes on some of the funnest underdog storytelling I have ever seen. And the fact that James Gunn is free of the Marvel confines of family entertainment, and DC has now seen fit to give most of its creators a lot of free reign, and especially a man as accomplished as James Gunn. Well, James Gunn has free reign, and this is the most James Gunn movie I have ever seen, and it is also his best. This is the best James Gunn movie. It is so character-driven, but not in any way does that take away from the plot. It is plot and character in tandem, and it happens so fun and so inventive and so darkly humorous that this movie hits every cylinder. It is fun, it is smart, it is witty, and it is a fantastic superhero movie. And it deserves to be watched. Please. The Suicide Squad. Just a fantastic culmination of things. A lot of things had to happen for James Gunn to direct this movie, and not a lot of them pleasant. But for what we got, I can't believe it. It is truly a marvel. I can't gush more about this movie. The Suicide Squad. My favorite movie of 2021. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for sticking around. The 12 of you who are still subscribed to me on YouTube, thank you. I see you. I appreciate you. My name is Arnie Diaz. I am available on pretty much any social platform as Arnie Diaz 89, Twitter, Instagram. Follow me. Say hi. Goodbye.